Hello, my loves. I'm sure we all have books that we read as teenagers or children that we think back on fondly. You know, maybe they were books that like really got us into reading, or one of the things that like really started that as a hobby for us. Or maybe they were just a nice bit of escapism from the horrors of growing up. The book that we're looking back on today very much, I would say, did a bit of both for me. Imagine, if you will, a teenage Nikki. She's sitting in her room surrounded by posters of Black Veil Brides, My Chemical Romance, Fall Out Boy, Panic at the Disco, potentially wearing this exact shirt because I'm pretty sure I've owned this shirt since I was like 14, I think. She's young, she's impressionable, she's wanting to find an emo boy of her own. And then she reads this book. It's Hush Hush. The dust jacket has fallen off, but it's Hush Hush. We're reading Hush Hush today. While I have reasonably vivid memories of me reading this and enjoying it, I don't really remember anything that happened in it. And this is not just my usual I forget everything and I have a really bad memory. This is a book that I read like at this point probably like 15 years ago, so give me some credit for not being able to remember it. I think that's understandable. The only thing I really remember about it is that it's about fallen angels and there's potentially maybe another world and there's like dark bad boy energy, love interest, and I couldn't remember really anything else. I hadn't really thought about this book at all until I saw a video on TikTok talking about it. It's this video which I'm not gonna play all of, but I will leave it linked down below in case you do want to go and watch it. But the creator is essentially talking about books that I suppose people of like my age would have read when we were younger, and how actually looking back now they're maybe not as good as we remember them being. So in that video she talks about Looking for Alaska, which I'm pretty sure even as a teenager I didn't love. I remember thinking the characters were way too pretentious and just annoying. She also talks about The Maze Runner, which I never read and really have no intention to ever read, so I can't really comment on that. And then she talks about Hush Hush, and I was like, my Hush Hush, my beloved Hush Hush, no way is this book as toxic and misogynistic and a complete rip-off of Twilight like this creator said. Now, I do want to make it clear this video isn't like a direct response to this creator, or even particularly me questioning or investigating whether this book is as problematic as it seems to be, because genuinely from the 50 pages of it I've already read, I think this creator is probably quite spot on in everything she said, but we'll get to that in a minute. The video piqued my interest. It's a book I hadn't thought about in a really long time, and I wanted to go on a little nostalgia trip and read it, and I figured we could do it together. So let's get into it. I haven't actually read that much yet. I'm about 50 pages in, but you best believe I've been paying attention. I've been taking notes, and I am already starting to notice some problems. I think the best way I can sum up this at the moment is this book feels very of its time. So for context, I believe this was published, my watch needs to go on silent. So for context, this book was published, I'm pretty sure, in like 2009, and I do feel like a lot of the YA or teen books like this that were published back then all had a very similar theme. Like if you read books at that time, if you were a teenager at that time, you will know what I mean, but if not, I don't know how to explain it or describe it.
I can't really explain it. I haven't got the words.
Like there's definitely some harmless elements of it that just make it very of its time. For example, specific references to technology and things like that. There's also quite a lot of just like the diet culture, especially, and sort of references to that, which I will sort of get into and talk about more in a minute. It just sent me like hurtling back. If you were a teenager at that time, you'll know what I mean. Probably like the worst time in our lives for it to be prevalent, because you know that's when we're literally forming all of our beliefs about ourselves and our bodies and how other people see us, and just everywhere it was shows like super size versus super skinny, My Fat Family. It is very much that. It's not a huge thing, but like I was just noticing it and being like, oh, this would not be in a book now. So to set the scene, we begin in biology class, and our main character Nora is talking with her best friend V. They sit together, they're clearly very, very close, and already I noticed some of the like very classic for the time time, it kind of still happens now, of like that trope of outgoing, extroverted, curvy, obsessed with boy's best friend versus main character who is shy, awkward, skinny, only cares about her grades, like that. It is very much that dynamic in their friendship. But anyway, we're in biology. It's time for their sex education part of the course. And can I just say, nothing that this coach says, or any of the lessons really that I've got to so far on this, are what I would consider to be like normal sex education. In all fairness, with that being said, when my school had its sex education day, they brought in a nun to come and talk to the girls to try and convince us all to become nuns. So maybe my view of sex education isn't the most normal, but you'll see what I mean. I don't think this is how you would normally approach it. So they come into the class, and on the board there is a naked Barbie doll and a naked Ken doll. It's like their cue that they're learning sex education. And V, upon seeing this, says, "This is exactly why our school outlaws camera phones." Do you remember when we used to call them camera phones? Because I do. So after that, the coach comes in and he's talking very much about like, what is science? Science is an investigation, it's sleuthing, it's being a detective, it's learning things. I don't know how to describe it, but like the way he was explaining it, I was like, you are right, that is what science is, but you as an adult saying this to a group of teenagers about sex education just feels a bit odd. But this whole thing is basically just a setup for him to be able to change the seating chart around, which V is really not happy about. Enables Nora to then have to sit next to our main emo boy Patch in order to get their like investigative minds on, I guess. For this, the homework for that day is for them to find out as much as they can about their partner and then like do a write-up on them and submit it back, which again just seems really odd. We're basically doing speed dating here. This just seems like it was a very easy way for the author to set up us being introduced to the love interest and her, Nora, having to get to know him. I don't know why this had to be about sex education, other than it was just to like, I don't know, make teenagers be like, oh, we're talking about sex. So to give you a little bit of information about Patch, but honestly we don't really know much about him. He is a transfer student. No one really knows like what school he was in before or why he transferred. After the class, V does say that she's pretty sure Patch has had to like resit whatever year they're in. It doesn't actually specify what year they're in, I'm not sure, but he's had to resit that year twice. So he is like a little bit older than them, but also clearly maybe troubled or has some issues if he's had to like resit. No one ever really talks to him, but within about 5 minutes of him sitting down with Nora and them like starting to try and get to know each other for this project, he like immediately reveals all of these like deeply personal things that he somehow knows about her. So she's trying to ask him questions and he's being really uncooperative, and she asks him what he does in his free time and he says, "I take pictures." So she goes to write down photography and then he says, "I wasn't finished. I've got quite a collection going of an e-zine." I don't know how to say that word, e-zine. Is that a thing anymore? But for context as well, Nora and V run their school's e-zine. "I've got quite a collection going of an e-zine columnist who believes there's truth in eating organic, who writes poetry in secret, and who shudders at the thought of having to choose between Stanford, Yale, and what's that big one with the H?" So one, he's just like, yeah, I've been stalking you and taking pictures of you. And secondly, I know all of these things about you. He comes across as like very much being this like edgy little emo, and I've literally written here, God, I bet I ate this creepy emo boy up as a teenager, which really maybe explains some of the boys that I was interested in when I was a teenager. But anyway, and Nora's kind of like, is he just trying to like irritate me and get under my skin? But then he does like keep saying stuff about her that is true, and that clearly he knows some way that suggests that maybe he's stalking her. Not a great start. He also then like continues to start asking her questions about herself, one of which is, have you ever seen a shrink? And this is like one of the vibes of the time that I don't really know how to put into words. There was this like period of teenage fiction film, I don't know if the films were necessarily meant for teenagers, TV shows that was very much like mental health in this like really edgy way. Like if you were like alternative and cool and had like a troubled background, then it was, I think, romanticized in a way that's quite different to how it is now, because I appreciate that can still be a problem now online. It was like this really specific time and vibe. Like I'm thinking about like American Horror Horror Story Series 1. I suppose kind of looking for Alaska as well, actually, going back to that book, if you've ever read that. And oh my god, what was that book that honestly had quite a horrific influence on me as a teenager? Winter Girls. Anyone else ever read that book and were personally victimized by it? Because I fucking was. I'm fine now. I hope you're fine now too. But like, do you know what I mean with that vibe of like edgy mental health? That was very much what it was giving. And there's like a comment that Nora makes afterwards. So she says no, but then in her head she's like, he doesn't need to know that I go and see the counselor every week. Obviously it's been a very long time since I was at school, but I feel like attitudes to mental health have changed quite a lot, and I fully understand that teenagers are probably still assholes sometimes and would maybe take the piss out of people for needing like mental health help, but I do feel like mental health is talked more about in schools now. It's easier to get access to mental health help for teenagers in school compared to when I was at school anyway. There wasn't really a thing to have support like that actually in the school, and I know this is in America, so my schooling experience would have been very different. I do think that's changed quite a lot, and so again, like reading this, the attitudes to that would have been very, very different. Again, just like makes me think like, oh my god, this is so 2009. So from there, Patch doesn't really reveal much about himself, and Nora is quite annoyed because obviously she only cares about her grades and she wants to get a good grade on this report, so she needs information about him to be able to do it. But instead of actually giving her any helpful information, Patch just like writes his phone number on her hand and tells her to call him, which Nora is adamant she won't do, but then she does eventually cave when she starts stressing too much about her grade, and she ends up going to this like arcade. I think it's an arcade. Nothing much really comes out of that conversation. However, when Nora then gets home, she is home alone because her mum like works away a lot, so she's used to being in the house on her own, but she thinks she hears someone outside her window, and she thinks she sees someone outside her window, and she is thinking to herself like, is it a coincidence that the first time I speak to Pat, then it's like someone was outside my window?
No.
But she's also not really sure if she imagined it or not. And then I would like to focus on the deeply, deeply inappropriate biology lesson that follows the next day. We're moving on from science being an investigation and needing to get to know people, and we're looking now at attraction. Coach singles out Nora in front of this whole class and says, what qualities are you attracted to in a potential mate? Which I feel is inappropriate. Nora doesn't really want to answer. She doesn't really give an answer. So then Patch starts answering instead, of course. He says that he likes intelligent, attractive, and vulnerable. Huge red flag. But Coach loves this. He's writing it down, he's asking more, and he's talking about how like the complexity of human attraction is one of the things that sets us apart from other species. And then he goes on to say, since the dawn of time, women have been attracted to mates with strong survival skills like intelligence and physical prowess, because men with these qualities are more likely to bring home dinner at the end of the day. The next part was the part that annoyed me the most. Men are attracted to beauty because it indicates health and youth. We won't focus on the potentially gross implications of that. No point mating with a sickly woman who won't be around to raise children. No, absolutely fuck off. Then Coach just goes on to explain that children are the key to survival, it's all biology, blah blah blah. Fuck off, Coach. But don't worry, it gets worse. Coach continues to talk to Patch, and he's like setting up this exercise of like, you're at a party, there's loads of girls of different shapes and sizes, there's one that fits your profile, attractive, intelligent, and vulnerable. How do you let her know you're interested? Which Patch says, I talked to her. And then Coach says, okay, how do you know she's interested? And Patch is talking a lot about body language, and how he would pay attention to that, like if she's turning her body towards his, she's holding eye contact. And then he says, does she bite her lip and play with her hair the way Nora is doing right now? Everyone in the class laughs. Instead of being like, Patch, that's a little bit inappropriate, let's not. Coach just says, very good. And then Patch just keeps going. He's talking about her blushing and how she's nervous and trying to draw attention away from her face. Nora is understandably so uncomfortable. And then Coach just says, there you have it, biology in motion. Patch is just harassing this poor girl in front of the whole class. Everyone's laughing about it, and you as a teacher are not going to step in and say, we maybe not make this personal. maybe you guys shouldn't sit next to each other actually, because I'm getting some bad vibes from you here. You know, you would be reasonable in thinking that, but do you know what actually happens is Nora goes to him after class and says, I would like to discuss the seating chart. I'm actually quite uncomfortable sitting where I am now. The coach just says, I like the seating chart. And Nora again says that she feels uncomfortable. And the coach just says, oh, but did you see how like involved in the discussion Patch was today? He never talked like that. I think it's good for him that you're sitting next to him. I think it's perfect actually. So I won't be changing the seating plan. And also Patch needs a tutor, so I'm going to assign you to tutor him. I would really like to hope that this is just fiction and something like this wouldn't happen actually in schools, but do you know what, actually, I wouldn't be surprised if it does, unfortunately. This is almost like the extreme version of, I'm sure some of you will be able to relate to this, being the quiet person in the class that doesn't really like talking that much, just kind of wants to get in and out of class. And so teachers would always be like, do you know who would be perfect to sit next to this girl? The guy who won't shut up. The guy who is gonna be really disruptive and distracting. And she'll have a good influence on him. It's like an extreme version of that, significantly worse though based on the whole conversation. So yeah, I was annoyed about that. So after that a hideous biology lecture, Nora and V go to the library. This is where we get like our first real look into the diet culture, because V's talking about how she's on the color wheel diet. I don't know if you remember all these ridiculous diets. And then some mean girl comes over called Marcy, and she basically, her whole thing is that she is the mean girl. And I know I complain about this a lot, but I am actually going to give this a pass. This does feel kind of realistic to what I remember school to be like anyway. Yeah, she's just basically the mean girl, and she just seems to like calling V fat, like that's her whole insult. We then delve even further past the diet culture into then V making eating disorder jokes to Marcy, who is thinner, and it's it's just They also see Patch at the library, and V kind of says, oh my god, do you think he's following you? Because he's never normally in the library, which I think she's saying it like as a joke. I'm finding it difficult to really get a sense of V's character because it's just kind of a bit all over the place. I don't really understand her as a character, but anyway. Nora then kind of gets a bit freaked out because obviously she thinks someone was watching her, but she's not really sure the night before in her house, and now Patch has turned up in the library, and also there was the horrible thing in biology. So she wants to leave immediately. They manage to sneak out without speaking to him. V drives back to her place, then Nora takes the car to hers. There's a very big thing about Nora living in the middle of nowhere, and the fog gets like really bad there. So V didn't want to give her a lift home. She just says, you can take my car. As Nora is driving home, something crashes into the front of the car. She stops, obviously, and she realizes it is a man in a ski mask who then, after being hit with a car, is absolutely fine and comes over and starts trying to rip her door off so he can get to her. One thing she noticed is that his eyes were black, and Patch's eyes have been described many times as black orbs. It just seems like too many coincidences occurring for her to like not then start to be quite fearful of Patch, who's maybe stalking her, basically just harassed her in front of the entire class, and now might have tried to attack her. That is where I've got to. That is where I've left off. That is the first 50 pages. I haven't really commented on it because I know I said like that creator said about this feeling like a bit of a Twilight ripoff, and do you know what, I can kind of see some similarities. I can. They're quite subtle though, they're quite small things, like for example this whole thing happening in biology class and them having to sit next to each other and that being kind of how they get to know each other. There was one small bit where Nora is anemic and she has to carry around iron tablets with her, but the way it's described when she takes the tablets, it's almost like, oh, she just needs a hit to get through the day, and it's just an iron tablet. But it very much reminded me of that bit in Twilight when Bella takes too much cold medicine because she wants to be able to sleep. Like there's definitely some subtle similarities, and maybe more will come out as I read more, but as of right now I do very much agree that, I mean, we don't really know much about Patch yet. I have a feeling he's not the ski mask guy, but I can't really remember. We'll have to find out. He is obviously very creepy though, and yeah, there's just been some real problematic 2009-isms. I'm gonna go read more. and I'll come back when I have more of an update. I'm back and a lot's happened. We've got a lot to go through. I've read like a little under 200 pages. This book is incredibly easy to read. We've got some new characters to discuss, some new mysteries, some developments in the ski mask guy. There's just a lot that's happened. Nora had just had her car accident, so as soon as she's driven off, she calls V, and she's obviously like really panicked, really distraught, trying to explain what's happened. She asks if she can stay at V's because obviously she's really scared, so she drives straight back there, goes inside to get V. They go outside so V can see the damage to the car, bearing in mind that the door was nearly ripped off. I think several windows were smashed. I think there was a hole in one of the windows, and V comes outside and there's mysteriously no damage to this car now at all. The only thing there is a crack on one of the wing mirrors. V is thrilled, she's happy. She's like, are you sure you hit something? Are you sure it wasn't a squirrel? Because V's just taken it as Nora hit a deer, and Nora hasn't bothered to correct her. And this is where I am starting to feel like more of the Twilight vibe coming in, like a mysterious guy in biology class that has some secrets and maybe kind of dangerous. There's a car related accident in which our main character isn't really sure what's real and what's happened, and she can't really tell anyone the truth about it, and she thinks her mysterious boy might be involved in some way. It feels very Twilight, and honestly that's probably why I enjoyed it so much as a teenager. So Nora's understandably confused. The next morning they go and get breakfast before school, and we meet two new characters. We meet Elliot and Jules. They have been like eyeing Nora and V across this like breakfast place they're at. Elliot is clearly very interested in Nora. They come over to sit with them, and V is thrilled about this because of course she's obsessed with boys. That's like a key part of her personality. We learn that they are from the prep school, like an hour away. Jules still goes there, but Elliot is transferring to Coldwater High, which is V and Nora's school. He is thrilled about this. Nora is feeling very uneasy and uncomfortable and just wants to leave. And Jules, this guy, clearly has no interest in talking to them and is just kind of surly and grumpy the whole time they're there. Then the next day in biology, Nora is, still trying to fathom out what's happened. She's concerned that Patch is following her, so she just asks him. He doesn't really give her much of a real answer. Doesn't say yes, doesn't say no, just kind of dances around the topic. So then she tries to convince him to ask Coach to change the ceasing plan, to which he's just like, no, you fit my desirable characteristics of being intelligent, attractive, and vulnerable, or whatever the fuck they were. So no, I'm not going to do that. And then after he's left, V comes over and says that she's managed to find out Patch's last name from the register of the class, and they should totally go look at his student file, which Nora is really anxious about and really doesn't want to do. She doesn't want to break the rule and get in trouble, but curiosity gets the better of her, and she agrees to V's plan, which is for Nora to go to the office, say she needs to register her iron pills because apparently she hasn't done that, even though she should have done that. And then because the nurse's office is right opposite the student file office, she can go in and sneak a little look at the file while V causes a distraction so no one will interrupt her. Do you want to know what this distraction is?
No.
V calls it a bomb threat to the school. So people will leave. And can I just say, the receptionist had just spoken to Nora. She gets the bomb threat and then she just runs off. She doesn't think, oh, there's a student back there, then there's no one else back there, no one's gonna tell her. No, she just runs off. It's the perfect distraction because Nora is able to get into the office. She looks at Patch's file and she's shocked. She can't believe what's in this file, but we don't find out just yet. After this has gone down and the school's been evacuated, V and Nora then go meet up at a restaurant, and we get yet more diet talk, which just feels like Nora subtly shaming who is supposed to be her best friend for not sticking to this diet. So from what I can understand from the colour wheel diet, is it's supposed to be like eating fresh fruit, vegetable that are on this colour wheel. So she'll keep saying things like, oh, I can't wait to see how you say this is a fruit or a vegetable. And it's like, babe, support your friend. Like, even if you don't agree with this diet, like, why are you being a bitch about it? It really reinforces to me like all of this conversation around V's diet, which is constant, by the way. Nora does this every time they eat together, and I just haven't really mentioned it, like, because it would be a lot, but it just feels like, oh, look at this poor fat girl trying to do a diet and just failing because she just likes food too much and she can't help herself. Like, that is the message it feels like it's trying to get across, and I think very much was the message at the time, as I talked about with like some of those shows back in the day, early 2000s, that kind of thing. And I just hate it. I absolutely hate it. While V is ordering, Nora like catches sight of a bus boy. Is that what they're called? I don't really know what that is. I mean, I vaguely know what that is, but I think that's that's what I mean. She realizes it's Patch. She realizes that Patch had said, like, in one of their first biology lessons together, that he works there. She's like, oh shit, it's Patch, we need to leave. But of course he spots her first and he comes on over to have a little chat. He is just generally being insufferable and being all like cocky, kind of flirty, but just also just being kind of annoying. Like, I really don't like him. And then like swipes a little bit of her lip gloss off with his thumb and is like, you'd look so much better without this. Fuck off. I hate that. I hate so many things, but weirdly I am still enjoying this. Anyway, he then asks her to come to a party with him on Saturday and she says no. Obviously, she says no. She also then says that she read his student file and it's completely empty. Like, there's literally nothing in there. Not even like an address or parent information or phone number. No immunization or medical notes at all. Literally nothing. And he's just like, oh, you worried I'm gonna like give you the measles or something? And she's like, no, you're clearly hiding something and I'm gonna find out what it is and expose you. And he's just kind of laughs at her. So then we go to the next day, we're in PE and Elliot is now in Nora's PE class and they're just having a little chat. He's like, oh, I was wondering when I'd bump into you again. He's supposed to be portrayed as this like nice guy, but he's like overly nice. He's like too friendly to the extent where I can't believe that Nora clearly doesn't want to talk to him, but I can't believe she's not suspicious of him because he's just weirdly too nice. She asks him like why he transferred from the prep school and he says that he lost his scholarship and his parents couldn't afford it anymore, so now he's here. They're playing softball, which I'm gonna be honest, I don't know what softball is. They're playing that. He picks her for the team. We have another interaction with mean girl Marcy where she's like, oh, thanks for handing us the game because you picked Nora. She's terrible at sport. Bella Swan. Anyone? Is anyone else getting Bella Swan vibes here? She is terrible at it. She gets 2 strikes and then Elliot decides he's going to teach her how to swing properly. So he comes and like does a thing where he stands behind her and like gets her in the right stance, helps her swing. And then she thinks she hears someone say her name. So she turns over and she sees Patch. And she's pretty sure she heard him say her name in her head, but she's like, no, I must be imagining that. But then she hears him say something else and it happens like 2 or 3 times and obviously it distracts her from the game. She's like, what the fuck is going on? Am I going mad or is he some kind of entity that can speak into my mind? But she still manages to hit the ball. She gets, I don't know what this game is or understand the rules of it, but they get the ball before she can get to second base. Is what happens. I'm not a sporty person, we know that. I don't understand. When she looks back, he's gone. And then Elliot comes over to talk to her after the game and he's like, was that your boyfriend watching? And she's like, ugh, no. And he's like, are you sure? It seems like there's something going on with you and I don't want to be going after an unavailable girl. And she's like, no, he's not. Wait, what? It's so obvious that this man's being really way too nice to you and has an interest in you, whether there are ulterior motives or not. He invites her and V to come with him and Jules to, I don't really know what this place is. It's just called the Seaport. I think it's like a fun fair because it just recently reopened and she agrees to go. On Saturday, V and Nora go to meet Elliot and Jules. Jules again clearly has no interest in talking to them and within like 5 minutes of them arriving he's like, I'm gonna go to the toilet, and then he just never comes back. The 3 of them, they're gonna play air hockey and then V's like, isn't that Patch over there? And he's just like playing on one of the arcade machines. And V starts like really exaggerating and saying like he's stalking her, the police are gonna get involved soon, he was violent last time, because for some reason she thinks her saying that will make Elliot jealous and like protective and therefore even more interested in Nora than he already is. And Elliot is like, do you want me to go talk to him? I'll go talk to him for you. I don't care if it gets violent, I'll have a fight, like it's fine, I'll put him in his place, which I hate. Nora's like, no, don't do that. So she goes to speak to Patch instead. And then Patch is like, who is that you're with? Do you want to come play pool with me instead? And Nora's like, no, I don't. I'm already with people. And he's like, just go to the pool table. I'll handle it. I'll go talk to them. I'll fight them if I have to. Can we all calm down? You're like, what, 15, 16? Like, seriously, calm down. Nora then hears him in her mind again, and she's like, how are you doing that? And Patch, of course, just acts like he has no idea what she's talking about, even though he's very clearly doing something, and he's quite amused by this conversation, but he doesn't let on that he's actually doing anything. He then is like, come and meet me at the Archangel, which is like a reopened ride, and we can ride that together. Of course, she says no, but of course then she ends up going anyway. While she's walking there, she thinks she can like sense someone watching her or following her. She turns around and sees like someone with a hood like in the shadows. She bustles back into the crowd trying to get distance between her and them, and then she walks into Patch and they end up going on the ride. I couldn't really work out what kind of ride this was. I thought it was like a drop ride, but from the description I don't think it was. It's not really important what kind of ride it was, to be honest, but anyway, they're on this ride. Midway through, Nora looks down and her seatbelt's come undone, so obviously she freaks out. She thinks she's gonna die, so she's like grabbing onto Patch, like she's being thrown everywhere in this car, and then she gets like really harshly thrown into the side, and the door of the car flies open and she falls out. And then blink, next second the ride's finished, it's rolling in, her seatbelt's still done up, and she's absolutely fine. And Patch is just like, wow, that was like such a loud scream, that's crazy. And she's like, what? I thought I was gonna die. And he's like, yeah, that's the point of the ride. Either weird things are happening or Nora's just hallucinating. I think we know which is, but Patch again acts like he has no idea what's just happened. They go back to the arcade, but V and Elliot just aren't anywhere to be seen. They look around the whole place, they're not there. They look around the car park and V's car is gone. Nora's like, I can't believe she left without me. She tries to call her, but her phone's dead, which is odd because she charged it just before she left. And we know the battery capacity of phones back in the 2009, so it's very strange that it's dead. Patch offers to give her a lift home on his motorbike, which she like has no other option, so she does. He invites himself inside and just like really makes himself at home. He's like, I'm gonna make us some food. So he starts making tacos, then he offers to teach her how to make them, and like again he's like standing really close to her and like directing her hand to like cut things, and you know the moment gets a little bit charged. They nearly kiss, but then Nora is interrupted by her phone ringing, which again odd because her battery was dead. She's then woken up in the middle of the night by a phone call from V, and V is like, where the hell did you go? We looked everywhere for you. We were like showing people your picture in the car park. We stayed for ages and we couldn't find you. And Nora's like, no, you left without me. So again, odd that it seems like V and Elliot were still there, but V is just relieved that Nora's okay. They have a little chat about Patch, of course, and then they agree that they're going shopping the next day. It is only then at this point that Nora realizes, wait, my phone was dead and I just got 2 phone calls which I shouldn't have been able to receive. That's strange. So the next day they do go shopping. They're in Victoria's Secret looking at stuff, and Nora thinks again she feels like she's being watched, so she looks out like the front window and she sees someone with a hood up again, standing a little bit back but clearly watching. So she goes and tells V, and for some reason V thinks it will be an amazing idea for them to swap coats and for V to go out first pretending to be Nora so they can check if this person is following, and if they do, Nora will then follow behind and then they'll like take them somewhere more secluded and question them. Absolutely terrible idea. I don't really know why they thought this was a good plan, but that's what they end up doing. V goes out, the person starts following, so Nora follows behind and notes that the person has a very feminine walk. So she doesn't think it's Patch. She thinks it could be maybe Marcy. She then hops into V's car to sort of get quicker to where they're leading this person, but then by the time she gets there, V is on the floor in pain, groaning, and the person is nowhere to be seen. So she calls an ambulance, obviously. V has a broken arm and then is not in school the next day. Nora's just kind of waiting until she's able to go and visit her, which she'll be able to do after school. Patch is mysteriously not in class, either. He's just absent. At the end of the day, she gets a letter from the new school psychologist because the old one's retired, and also she'd missed a couple of sessions with him. So she gets a letter from the new psychologist, Miss Green, saying like, I see you missed new sessions, I'm here, want to get to know you, like come and meet me. So she does, because V's still not ready for visitors. The psychologist, Miss Green, is weird, and it's abundantly obvious there's something off about her energy immediately, which Nora kind of picks up on, but not really. Miss Green is basically saying like, oh, I can't read the old guy's files, I can't read his handwriting, so I'm trying to make new files, so like, you know, tell me what's going on. And Nora basically says, I don't want to rehash all of the stuff I talked about with him because it's just like digging up old things and I'm actually ready to move on. Miss Green is like, sure, how are your grades? Also, I saw on your file that you're tutoring Patch. Nora thinks it's a bit weird that that would be on her file because like she hasn't even met up with Patch to tutor him yet. It's not like an actual formal agreement. Then Miss Green says like, I want you to arrange it so you and Patch aren't alone off campus together. I want all of your sessions to be at school where there's a teacher present, but I can't tell you why, which is, again, odd, but Nora doesn't really think too much about it. She just leaves. So after all of that, V is still not ready for visitors, so Nora decides she's going to go to the library, work on one of her e-zine articles. While she's researching, she comes across an article about a student at the prep school who was questioned in a murder investigation, and upon opening this article, she realizes it's Elliot that was questioned. Reads a little bit more, discovered that this girl was found hanging in the woods. Elliot was the last person to be seen with her, so they questioned him, but it was ultimately ruled a suicide. As she's reading this article, Elliot just comes in to the library where she is, and she like manages to block her screen, or is really trying to block her screen so he can't see what she was reading, but she's not sure if he's seen it or not. He is, however, suddenly very different. He's very odd. He's not being overly friendly, he's not being overly nice, he's actually being quite like subtly aggressive and trying to get her to come with him. She manages to get away from him, but she has a really bad feeling about it, and so she prints out a copy of the article so she can show V. When she does get to the hospital, V is a little bit in and out of it on painkillers, but Nora manages to find out that the person who attacked her, well, V thinks it was a guy, had dark eyes and was a similar build to Patch. Nora's like, are you sure it didn't look like Elliot? And V is pretty confident that no, the more she thinks about it, the person really looked like Patch, even though she couldn't see the person's face because he was wearing a ski mask. Nora's quite surprised because she was fairly convinced this person was a woman, and also now that she's found out this stuff about Elliot, she's starting to question him too, and for some reason she just doesn't think it was Patch, even though Patch has been really creepy and weird up until this point, but she just has a feeling, you know, she just doesn't think Patch would do that. She tries to tell V about the article, but V is just at that point completely out of it on painkillers, so she decides she's gonna have to wait to tell her about that. Okay, I ran out of time yesterday to bring you fully up to speed. We're back today. I did read a little bit more last night, so I'll finish off where we got to and then we'll update on where I read to last night. Side note, I've been trying to be more active recently, and I did like an hour on my exercise bike yesterday, and my legs, I don't know if they'll be functioning for the next 5 to 6 business days. But anyway, back to Hush Hush. It's the next day. V has been discharged from hospital. At least I assume it's the next day. One thing I will say, and it's going to come up soon, is that I'm generally a bit confused about the timeline of things that happen in this book. It seems like they're all happening in a very short period of time, but then certain things don't necessarily make sense. It's a bit odd, okay, the timeline of things. But anyway, I think it's the next day. V's been discharged from hospital, and she decides that her and Nora need to find out more about Patch, because she still thinks it was Patch, and Patch is a creepy weirdo, and she's right, Patch is a creepy weirdo. What they decide to do is to go to the restaurant that he works at on a day he's not working, so Nora can ask his colleagues about him and try and fish for more information. V then like springs it on Nora. She's like, oh, by the way, I've invited Elliot and what's the other guy's name? Jules too. And she also says that she's been seeing Jules on the side, which is odd because like the 2 times Nora's seen him, he's just left. And to add to that, Jules just doesn't show up. Just Elliot turns up and he's like, oh, Jules is having like, he's really ill or something. I can't remember what he says. So Jules is just mysteriously not there. Elliot's being really sus. It's like suddenly, because we found out about this article, we're just seeing him being really weird and cunning and sneaky and sly and manipulative. Like all of a sudden he's done a whole 180, but V doesn't really seem to be noticing this at all. So Nora's trying to get information out of him. She's basically like, oh, why did you transfer in the first place anyway? Even though she literally already asked him that. I know the explanation here could be, well, he was lying when he said he lost his scholarship, but actually it just seems a bit odd that she asks him and he doesn't even respond like, oh, I already told you, remember? It's just as if that never happened. He's talking about how Jules's parents are really rich, but they're never really around much. They work in different countries, one of which mentioned is Australia in the diamond business, to which V or Nora, I can't remember which one, says, oh, I didn't realize like Australia was known for diamond mining, and Nora in her head is like, it's definitely not, that's weird. But again, V doesn't think anything of this. She is completely blind to red flags, except for when it comes to Patch, but of course she's going to be proved wrong about that. Then Nora goes to talk to Patch's colleagues, and honestly this whole thing was incredibly painful and awkward and uncomfortable. Like V's given her a disguise and she's got like a blonde wig on and like heels, and she is just really bad at getting information out of this guy that works in this restaurant. She's like, oh, I'll try and charm him, I'll try and use my feminine wiles to get it out of him, and then she gives up on that in literally about 2 seconds and starts asking him just like, does Patch have any felonies? Does he have any history of stalking? Has he ever had a restraining order against him? The guy clearly thinks it's a bit odd, but I don't think he thinks it's odd enough. He then is like, just go ask Patch yourself, and it turns out Patch is actually working. He's covering for someone else, and Nora's like, oh shit, runs to the bathroom, and who walks into the bathroom after her? It's Patch, of course. He basically just says to her, like, you could have just asked me yourself. I don't have any felonies or restraining orders. Also, I have an ex-girlfriend and she's dead. Or he alludes to the fact that she's dead. Oh, because also one of the questions Nora had asked this guy is like, does Patch have a girlfriend? While she's asking, like, is he potentially dangerous? It's just... Nora has no survival instincts, I swear, honestly. So that's pretty much all we get from that conversation. Nora goes home, she's having a chat with her mum, but then her mum has to go out to do something for work. When Nora goes up to her bedroom, it's like ransacked. There's stuff everywhere, and the ski mask man is there. She freaks out, understandably. He just jumps out the window, and then she calls the police. When the police show up, I don't know how she didn't anticipate this happening, given what happened with the car, but they turn up, she takes them up to her room and it's in pristine condition, as if no one's ever been there, nothing's ever happened. The police officer is an absolute arsehole and is like, you're just making this up for attention. In all fairness to him, given the evidence that he's been presented, I can understand thinking that, but also like, you don't say that. You don't say that. She then decides she's not going to tell anyone about this. She's not going to tell her mom, even though the police officer was like, it would be really good if we had a chat with your parents, because something's clearly going on here. She just leaves it and thinks like, what the hell is going on? So then it's not until the next day that Nora finally then gets an opportunity to tell V about the article she found about Elliot. V is just like, yeah, but he wasn't found guilty. I'm gonna side with the police on this and believe them. I'll keep my opinions about that to myself. I still really don't understand V as a character. She does not seem like a good friend, but also it just seems like she's not written very well. So her motivations, her priority, her character just are a bit confusing, but the way they are portrayed do not come across as her being a very good or supportive friend to Nora. Anyway, V doesn't believe her about that, and she's like, no, I'm sure Elliot's a really good guy, and actually he had nothing to do with it. Nora then is saying she wants to go to the prep school that Elliot used to go to like find out more about him, which again, no survival instincts whatsoever. If you genuinely think this man has murdered someone, why are you going to dig up information about him? Why are you doing that, Nora? V, in all fairness to her, thinks this is a bad idea. But then Nora's like thinking more about it, and she's also thinking about Jules, and she's like, it's just really weird that he always disappears whenever we're all together. And it's just really weird that he has so much time to spend with Elliot and like have breakfast with him every morning when the prep school is over an hour away. So she's starting to get suspicious of Jules too. She then realizes that although her room was in like pristine condition after the break-in, the article that she'd found about Elliot that she'd printed off was missing from her desk. That's the only thing that was taken. And when she tells V this, she's like, oh my god, Elliot broke into my house. He stole that article because he didn't want me to know about it. Negating the fact that like it's on the internet and it, like anyone could have access to that and print it out. But anyway, V's like, what? And then Coach splits them up because he says they're talking too much. So that conversation gets cut short. She then gets paired up with Patch again and he's just his normal flirty weird self. After class, Nora goes to see Miss Green again, and this is where I really started to get confused on the timeline because Miss Green says she's disappointed in Nora for spending time with Patch, and Nora's like, what are you talking about? And she says, oh well, he gave you a lift home on Saturday after going to the arcade or wherever they'd been. Yeah, the arcade. That happened before Miss Green and Nora's first meeting. So one, Miss Green hadn't even warned her about Patch yet. How was Nora supposed to, you know, take that advice on, for one? But two, why are you only bringing it up now if you're concerned when it had already happened before? Like, it just doesn't make sense other than like there needing to be more Miss Green being weird behavior. There's like other situations that could have been brought up. It seems like it's just there to show Miss Green is clearly following, watching, doing something to Nora that is not normal for a school counselor. Nora, for whatever reason, doesn't really think there's much weird about that. She's just like, oh, how does she know that? And then she doesn't think anymore about it, even though it's blatantly obvious that this woman is or has been following you. So then after school, we do get a bit of a continuation with the conversation with V and Elliot. V is still like, no, I don't think there's anything sus about Elliot. You're just like overthinking it. And then Nora decides to go to the library after school. V doesn't want to come with her, so she goes on her own. She has another run-in with Marcy where they basically just say horrible things to each other. Marcy's being really horrible about V again after she got attacked and makes some kind of a fat joke towards her, and it ends with Nora calling her an anorexic pig, which is just very of the time insult, which I just hate. But anyway, they have a little bit of a run-in. A security guard separates them. Like, they don't fight or anything, but they're having a bit of an argument. The security guard is like, girls, calm down, let's go. And Nora, not wanting to run into her again, goes out the back way and ends up in the car park where, who's there? You've guessed it, it's Patch again. Here we do get one of my favorite quotes from this entire book. Patch was wearing a black t-shirt, loose jeans, and steel-toed boots. His eyes looked like they didn't play by the rules. What does that mean? What does that mean? His eyes didn't play by the rules? Like, I know what you're trying to say, but that makes absolutely no sense, Becca. What are you talking about? Nora starts questioning him about whether he's following her, if he had anything to do with the attack on V, all of that kind of stuff. He says no to everything, and then she's just feeling a bit uneasy, so she tries to run away. He grabs her and he's like, what's wrong? Why are you acting like this? Maybe because you're being weird and your eyes don't play by the rules. She says like, oh, I just had a run-in with Marcy, like it was really tough. And he's talking about how he needs to teach her to fight and asks her to punch him so he knows what he's working with. And she's like, no, I don't believe in violence for the sake of violence. And then he's like, come on, a guy like me could take advantage of a girl like you. Show me what you're working with. Way to make a girl feel safe, Patch. What an absolutely disgusting thing to say. I dislike you immensely, and I'm disappointed in my teenage self for liking you because I know she did. He also makes a really mysterious comment about the Archangel ride that they went on when she thought she was gonna die and she thought her seatbelt had come undone. She says, what happened on the Archangel? Did you save me? And he says, if I'd saved you, we wouldn't be standing here having this conversation. And she says, you mean if you hadn't saved me, we wouldn't be here? I'd be dead. And he says, that's not what I said. I had no idea what he meant. Why wouldn't we be standing here? You'd still be here. He paused. I probably wouldn't. So we're getting some hints about his motivations or powers or stuff, but she, again, doesn't really think much more about this, honestly. Nora needs to question things more, is my takeaway. She thinks she's questioning things and working things out, but she is really bad at it. He drives her home and she agrees to go out with him on Saturday night. We then skip forward to Saturday where she's getting ready to go out. She's like dolled herself up, ready to have a little date with Patch, and then the police come to her door and they ask her what happened between her and Marcy when they were at the library. Nora explains, says they got into an argument, that, you know, they said some not very nice things to each other, but that was it, and then they separated. She asks what happened in a apparently Marcy got quite badly beaten up not long after that. So obviously it looks kind of sus for her. She gives Patch's like name as an alibi, I guess, and says like, you know, he can vouch for me, he was with me, he drove me home. And the detective is like, oh, Patch, is that your boyfriend? Did you ask your boyfriend to beat her up? And then he asks for all like Patch's details and stuff. And we don't actually know if she gives them or not. It just kind of fades to black. As soon as Patch turns up, she's like, yo, did you hear about what happened to Marcy? Did you beat her up? Patch does seem genuinely unaware of this. Like, she thinks his surprise is authentic. At the same time, like, do we really trust Nora? Her instincts are not good. But she seems to believe he did not beat her up. They go to the arcade. Some dude called Rickson turns up, and he's clearly really good friends with Patch. They have a little, you know, bro wrestling match on the floor. The back of Patch's shirt gets ripped, and Nora sees 2 massive scars down his back in like the shape of a V. Almost like wings have been ripped out of his back. But she's just like, oh my god, that's horrific. And then again, doesn't really think about it for a while. She just moves on from that very quickly. She does come back to it. You know, this is one of the things she does then think about again. But like in that moment, I feel like personally I would have more thoughts about that and want to know more about that. They leave to go get food, and then we get one of my second favorite quotes in this book, which is, on the drive back, Patch took the Topsham exit and parked alongside the historic Topsham paper mill. At one point, the mill had been used to turn tree pulp into paper. Oh my god, no way. No, I would have never guessed that if you hadn't told me, Nora. I would have never thought that the paper mill made paper. That's crazy. Anyway, they go to this place that's now been turned into a restaurant. They have food. While Patch is picking up the food, Nora looks through his glove compartment and finds a flashlight or a torch which has what appears to be blood all over it. And she's like, oh shit, he did beat up Marcy and he used this torch to do it. So she asks him when he comes back, and he's like, he picks up a gun from his back seat and he's like, it's a paintball gun. I went paintballing and we played capture the flag and we used the torch for it. It's paint on it, not blood. And she's like, oh, okay. And then feels really silly for asking him. Maybe that's true. I know for a fact it is true. I really need Nora to be more suspicious of this man. He has got so many red flags and she's not capturing any of them. So then when they get back home, he gives her a snow globe for some reason, and it's like a miniature of the pier that they went to when they went on the Archangel ride, and she thought she was gonna die. And then her mum comes out and Nora's like, oh shit, she's gonna meet Patch. Patch is like being kind of his cocky self, and he says he's got a GPA of 2.2, which I have no clue what that means. Judging by Nora's mum's horrified reaction, that's bad, but he's just like being a little joker. And then he leaves. Okay, so that is where I had originally got to. Let's look at the little bit that I read last night, which is not really a lot. My dislike for V growing by the second. Let's go back a little bit and let me explain why specifically what I read last night made me really dislike V even more. So when Nora gets home, V calls and asks about the day. Nora isn't really answering any of her questions and asks V what she thinks might cause the scars that she saw on Patch's back. Nora then suggests it could be a gang fight, prison scars, or skid marks, which I think this is a UK thing. I'm not sure if any other countries say this as well, but I think it's a UK thing. Skid marks here. I don't know if we'd say it in that context. Maybe we would, but skid marks specifically means the marks that feces leave behind either in a toilet bowl or in someone's underwear if they've not like wiped properly after going to the toilet. When she was like, maybe it's skid marks, I was like, what? No? But then she qualified from a traffic accident, so that makes a lot more sense. As they're talking, Nora is looking at the snow globe and she notices the miniature like Archangel ride in there, and she sees the, like, I think there's like a big statue of an angel there that is fallen, and she sees the exact same scar on the back and she's like, oh my god, is Patch an angel? So then when she gets off the phone, she has her Bella Swan moment and she opens up Google and she begins searching, and she finds out that apparently fallen angels can possess humans, but only for 2 weeks in Heshvan, and that they can also, outside of possessing humans, they can also put thoughts and images into people's heads. And she's like, oh, like all the times I've heard Patch in my head. She also discovers that humans and fallen angels can have like hybrid, half human, half angel babies called Nephilims. Nephilims? I listened to a very small amount of the audiobook and they said that word completely different to how I thought it was pronounced. But she finds out about that. Anyway. Okay, and then the next day, Elliot comes to Nora's house, and this is where we start to dislike V. So Elliot comes and says, oh, he's just being a bit weird. He's clearly drunk because she can smell alcohol, but he's like, oh, you don't like me very much, do you, Nora? That really hurts my feelings. And the crux of it is he's inviting her and V to go camping with him and Jules. She is kind of like, no, I don't really want to do that. He grabs her and shoves her against the wall and threatens her. Thankfully, Nora's mum calls out from inside the house and he leaves because he doesn't obviously want her mum to see him like that. And then when V calls, she's like super excited. She's like, oh my god, have you heard? We're going camping. Nora explains what just happened and she's like, no, Elliot just threatened me. And V just goes, yeah, but he was drunk, right? And like clearly he's been going through a lot, so like maybe there's an explanation. Nora, why are you still friends with this girl? She does not care about you. She vocally will say things sometimes as if she cares about you, but she's not acting like she cares about you. You also clearly don't really care about her very much, even though you say that you do, but then you constantly take like the piss out of her for not following her diet. I don't think you two are as good friends as you think you are. If my friend came to me and was like, this guy threatened me, I'd be like, fuck him, we're not going camping, and actually we're never talking to him again. And also, would you like support to either contact the police or no? I was gonna say, or go to his house and hurt him. But I wouldn't do that. I promise I wouldn't do that. I would never do that. Nora and V have like a little bit of an argument. It's not a proper argument, but they're clearly both kind of annoyed with each other. And Nora then decides to go to Portland. Oh, no. Nora said she's going to go to Portland to go to the prep school. And she asks if she can borrow V's car. And V's like, yeah, you can borrow it if you come camping with us. After Nora's just told her that Elliot threatened her. Just terrible friend all round. So Nora's like, no, fuck you, I'm not doing that. And she just goes to Portland on her own, which is just a terrible decision, frankly. Just everyone here is making such bad decisions. I don't really like any of these characters or particularly care what happens to any of them. This story so far is not as bad as I was expecting it to be. It's definitely not as good as I remember it being. And I don't really know why I liked it so much. Like, there's definitely a nostalgia for me in reading it, and I am kind of enjoying, to an extent, reliving that and kind of laughing at some of, you know, the silly writing about Patch's eyes not playing by the rules. But is like the timeline's a bit confusing. The character, especially V, I just can't understand her character or what it's supposed to be, or maybe I can and I just think it's a terrible characterization. Nora is just kind of beige. She's just kind of meh, but not in a Bella Swan way. I think personally Bella Swan is an amazing character and I found her deeply relatable as a teenager. I think she very much captures the awkward teenage experience very well. Nora, I don't get. I don't get her motivations. I don't know what she's interested in. I don't really know anything about her. She's just very beige. All of the other guys, like Elliot has gone from this like, oh, he's the nicest guy ever, to no, actually he's evil in just like 2 seconds flat, and Patch is just creepy. I don't really like anyone. There's not really much plot here, honestly. This is a lot of just, oh, we did this, we went to biology, and then we went shopping, and then we had a fight with someone. Like, this is a very vibey book. This is a very character book, and unfortunately all of the characters are awful. Sorry, I forgot. I did also read the bit where Nora then goes to the prep. She doesn't actually go to the prep school. She just goes to a restaurant nearby where the girl who died, whose name I've forgotten, she used to work, and talks to a waitress, and the waitress basically says like, oh, I wouldn't be surprised if Elliot was involved. Like, he comes from money, he could absolutely cover something like that up very easily. And Nora then at this point is like, wait, what do you mean he comes from money? Because she's remembered that she had previously asked him about why he transferred, and he said that he lost his scholarship. And the waitress says like, no, he had loads of money. He bought his girlfriend, the girl who's dead, an entire apartment. Like, he was wealthy. So Nora's then just got more questions about Elliot. She also asks about Jules, and the waitress is like, oh, he didn't come in here that often. Like, I didn't really see him as much. And she also says it looks like Jules didn't want the girlfriend around. Suspicion on both sides here. It's clearly like building to, who is it? Who is the person in the ski mask? Is it Patch? Is it Miss Green? Is it Elliot? Is it Jules? I have my suspicions. Miss Green is so obviously sus, in a way that she is so obviously suspicious that she can't be the main person. There has to be multiple people. Elliot is too obvious to be a actual antagonist here because of his weird 180 I'm evil actually. It can't be Patch because Patch is the love interest, so it means it has to be Jules. That's my instinct. The only thing that doesn't really make sense is that Jules is described, I don't think I mentioned this earlier, Jules is described as excessively tall. I think they said he was like 6'9" or something, but he's basically Greg Davies. The person in the ski mask is not that tall. Obviously Nora thought it was a woman, which would fit with the Miss Green thing. I just have a feeling that's gonna be you're gonna think it's her and then actually it's someone else. That is where I got to last night. I think I've got slightly over or just less than 100 pages, around 100 pages left, so we're nearly at the end. So far not a lot has happened. We'll see if any of these characters can redeem themselves. I don't have high hopes. I will come back when I have finished. Okay, we're back. We have finished. Hush hush. I think that sigh just encapsulates how I feel. Let me tell you what happens. Where I left off, oh, Nora had just been talking to the waitress, hadn't she? So she then is on her way home on the bus and she gets a text from V. She's at a party with Elliot and Jules and Nora should come because V is an even bigger idiot than Nora. V, it just seems like, genuinely, I don't know how to describe it, but it seems like she is a secondary character that was not fully developed and no real thought has gone into what thoughts would go through her head. It just seems like she's making all of these really ridiculous decisions merely just to keep the plot going, to keep us in the dark about who the bad guy is, not in a way that is congruent or makes sense. She doesn't, like, she's just not a good character. Nora decides to go to the party because V says the area is a bit rough and she's there on her own because Jules and Elliot have gone to get something from the prep school. Nora's like, oh, I must go save my friend that keeps making terrible decisions and doesn't support me or listen to me in any of the things I'm concerned about. She meets what is repeatedly referred to as a bag lady. This is a woman clearly without a home who is walking around with a shopping cart full of stuff, and she offers directions to Nora to where this party is in exchange for Nora's coat and hat. Nora does this because she just needs to find this place, hands all of her stuff over, goes to follow the directions, and then realizes she left her phone in her pocket. Fucking idiot. Turns around and goes back in the hopes that this woman would give her her phone back. She then, as she's walking down this alley, hears gunshots, and when she gets to the end, the woman has been shot and she is dead. Nora's like, oh my god, she's been shot wearing the coat that I was wearing 2 minutes ago. Yeah, obviously they were trying to kill you and they thought that was you. She does come to this conclusion a little bit later, but like maybe understandable that she didn't to begin with, actually, because, you know, this is quite shocking for her, actually. Fair enough. It was quite a traumatic thing. I'll let Nora off here. She runs to a phone box to try and call the police, but of course, when she then turns back, the body's disappeared. It's just completely gone, as all of this other evidence of things that have been happening against her have been. So instead, she calls Patch, and he comes and picks her up. She doesn't tell him about the woman being shot. She just says she needs to go and get V from this party, and then she uses Patch's phone to text V to like get a full address because they can't find where this place is. She then gets a response from V and says, oh, actually we're heading home because Jules and Elliot couldn't find what they were looking for at the school, so we're going home. Patch and Nora start driving home. The car breaks down. They get out of the car, well, Patch gets out of the car and he's like, it's not gonna run. We're gonna have to either push it or find somewhere else to call for help. So they end up at a motel, and conveniently a storm is blowing in, so they can't then use the phone because all the phone lines are down. So Patch buys them a room, and Nora's like, I am not staying in a room with you. But also she clearly actually does not believe that at all, because all of the time throughout this book that Nora's been like, I want nothing to do with this guy, I hate him, he's really awful. She actually clearly wants to spend a lot of time around him. It's the classic. It's the classic. Book is the blueprint for enemies to lovers done badly. But anyway, they both have a shower because they were soaked and freezing, and when Patch comes out, he's like just wearing trousers. He doesn't have a shirt on, and Nora sees his scars again. He's then being his usual cocky little flirty self and like pulls her to him, and she accidentally touches one of his scars and then is suddenly in one of his memories. And so in this memory, I think it's August before school started, so her and Patch hadn't met yet. He's in the arcade that he frequents playing a game of poker. Who walks in but Miss Green? What a surprise that Miss Green knew Patch and was clearly involved with Patch in some way. Patch clearly isn't very happy to see her, and she's basically saying to him she's figured out a way for him to come back to heaven. They don't actually say heaven, but I'm gonna assume that's what they mean. If he saves a human's life, he'll be able to come back and be a guardian angel. And Patch is like, no, I don't want to do that. I know that's not really why you're here. Just tell me the truth. And Miss Green, whose name, what is her actual name? Dabria? I don't know how to pronounce it. I'm gonna say Dabria. She's like, look, I know you've heard rumors about the Book of Enoch. Essentially, in this book, there's a story of a fallen angel who kills his Nephilim host. So each fallen angel has a specific person they possess. During that 2-week period, they're able to possess people, and they are all Nephilims. That's the only way they can possess people. In this book, a fallen angel had killed his host, and that had turned him human. Again, the angel, and Patch has read this and wants to do that because he doesn't want to go back and be a guardian angel. He doesn't want to be a fallen angel anymore. He wants to be a human. Everyone, including Dabria, seems to think that this book is just a myth. That's not true. That's not going to happen. But she's very keen to stop Patch from trying to do this. And it seems like all of the other archangels are very keen to try and stop Patch from doing this. So he's like, no, I don't want to be a guardian angel. Just lie to the other angels and tell them that I showed some interest. Tell them that I asked for the name of a human that I could save. Dabria and Patch clearly have a history. They clearly were together before. Patch is not interested anymore, but Dabria is clearly obsessed with him and really wants him to come back to heaven so they can be together again. So she's like, I can't tell you the name of a human because I think she's an angel of death, so she would know all of the humans that are due to die soon. And he's like, come on, just tell me the name of one person who's like high up on that list but would deserve to be saved. And it looks like she's not going to tell him, but then she's like, fine, Nora Grey. Shocker. Patch seems uncomfortable with this. He seems surprised by this, which is interesting because he has not met Nora yet, or Nora doesn't think he's met her yet. So she doesn't understand why it seems like he recognizes her name. Patch then asks Miss Green or Dabria how Nora's gonna die, and Dabria says he's going to kill her. Nora then comes out of the memory at this point and is like, what the fuck? You want to kill me? Have you just been planning to kill me this whole time? Is that why you came to this school? Is that why you've been talking to me? And basically we find out that Patch indeed had planned to kill Nora because he wanted to become human. Him and Dabria used to be together before he fell, but this was a really long time ago. I don't really know how old Patch is, but I'm assuming very old. We also find out that it was Patch that made Coach change the seating plan. Patch did in fact make her think she was going to die on the ride, but he couldn't go through with actually killing her. And that also he had planned to kill her when he came over to her house for the first time, but again, he couldn't go through with it. And then in order to try and get Nora to trust him, he lets her touch his scars again. What she sees this time is him and Rickson, the guy from the bar before where they had a little bro wrestling match. They are in a graveyard having a conversation. It's Heshvan, so Rickson is like, come on, let's go possess our Nephilims. He wants to get laid. Patch is being a little emo boy and he's like, have you heard about the Book of Enoch? And he's like talking to him about it and how he could become human again. And basically Rickson is saying the same thing that Dabria said, which is that that's not real. Come on, you just need to possess your host, Chauncey, I think is how you would say his name. And this might be relevant to add that there is a prologue at the beginning of this book where we see Chauncey enter a deal against his will with a mysterious other creature, but we don't know who that is. Obviously it was Patch. We discover Patch made Chauncey agree to let him possess his body for 2 weeks a year, even though Chauncey didn't really want to. And Chauncey is still alive because he's in a film and the films are immortal. Nora comes out of the memory. We find out that the fallen angels, essentially, he describes it as it's like living in glass. So he can, you know, be present, he can talk to people, he can feel things emotionally still, but he can't physically feel things. That was why he wanted to become human, so he could actually fully experience the world and love and all of that. Nora then just offhand is like, so wait, why is Miss Green still here if you're not together anymore? And Patch is like, what? Miss Green's still here? She's still on Earth? And Nora's like, yeah, she's the school counselor. She explains, like, you know, she tried to get me to stay away from you. And Patch is like, right, she's up to something. I need to go check her files. Maybe she's written something in her school files that I need to know about. He drops Nora back home and is like, stay here, you're fine, no one's in the house, I'm gonna go check the files and then I'll be right back. Stupid. We all know what happens when you do that. He leaves, and then of course, who is in the house? Miss Green / Dalbria. She goes on like a weird rant about the only way to have Patch back is to get rid of Nora, but then she also talks about how awful humans are and she hates being on Earth because it's making her more human. She tries to kill Nora, but Nora manages to like run upstairs and hide in the fireplace in her mum's room. Dalbria can't find her, so she's like, I'm gonna burn this whole house down room by room until you get out, and she sets fire to Nora's mum's room. Nora does manage to get out and she's considering jumping out the window, but then Patch turns up. For reference as well, I forgot to say, Dalbria also says that Patch needs to sacrifice Nora because she is a descendant of his Nephilim host, and that sacrifice will be what turns him human, so that's why he wanted to kill her. So anyway, Patch turns up and he's like, I'll deal with Miss Green. I don't remember what he says to her. And then he's like, I'll deal with Miss Green. My car's outside. Take it to the pier and I'll meet you there. Nora does not do that. She just has a bad feeling about V and something being wrong with V. She calls V's mum, who said, oh no, she said she was going to go to the cinema after the party. When Nora gets to the cinema, V is nowhere to be found, but do you know who is there? Patch. He convinces Nora that he's not going to try and kill her because what Miss Green had said about him needing to sacrifice her had made Nora have some doubts. He says he's not going to, he cares about her, she's important to him. And then Nora asks what happened to Dalbria, and Patch says he ripped her wings out. Nora then gets a call from V saying her, Elliot and Jules are at the high school playing hide and seek, and they've got uneven team numbers, so Nora needs to come and join them. And Elliot takes the phone and says, yeah, you need to come and join us, or else there's a tree waiting for V in it, making reference to the fact that he clearly faked the suicide of his ex-girlfriend and is threatening to, I don't know why I'm explaining this, you know what he means, he's gonna kill V. Nora and Patch head to the high school. Patch is like, I'm gonna go in, you wait out here. While she's waiting out there, she gets a call from Elliot, who's like, I can see you, are you not gonna come in and play with us? Weirdo. And so she ends up going into the school. All of the lights are off, but she stumbles across Jules's dead body on the floor. She then goes to the library and finds Elliot dying. He's not dead. I can't remember what's happened to him. So she goes to run out, and who does she bump into? Not Patch this time. I can understand why you thought it might be Patch, but it's not. It's Jules. He says her mind is weak, so it was easy for him to make her think that his dead body was there. So clearly he has some kind of thought image manipulation, mind manipulation like Patch does. And then he takes her to the biology classroom to have a little talk because of course everything has to be resolved in the biology classroom. But we get his whole villain explanation speech. Essentially, Jules is Chauncey and he wants to hurt Nora to hurt Patch. He says he inherited some fallen angel power from his father, which is why he was able to like make her think that she'd seen Jules's dead body. He also says he was the guy that jumped out at her in her car and made her think the car had been smashed up, and that he made her think that her bedroom had been broken into. He, however, was not the person that attacked V. That was Dalbria, which is why Nora was so convinced it was a woman, because that one time it wasn't actually Jules. The rest of the time in the ski mask it was. Jules also says because he has that power of mind manipulation, he was able to disguise his height so that she wouldn't think it was him that was following her and attacking her and basically tormenting her. Nora then realizes this is why Jules always disappeared when they were out, because he didn't want Patch to see him. After this little villain speech, Nora manages to stab him with a scalpel and runs away. She finds V and they like hobble out together. They're trying to get to an exit. Jules has like barred all of the exits except one, so they're making their way there, and then of course they run into Jules. Nora tells V to just run and get help, and V does it without a second thought. I mean, really is the sensible decision, but also just again shows that she's not really the best friend. There wasn't even a moment of, no, I'm not leaving without you.
Just go! Get out of here! No, without you!
Not even a hesitation of it, just like, whoop, yeah, I'm out of here, don't need to tell me twice. V runs, Nora runs to the gym because she's just trying to buy time. She's trying to hide somewhere. Jules follows her, and at this point, Patch has snuck in behind Jules. When Jules realizes this, he threatens to shoot Nora, and then Patch somehow, even though it's not Heshvan, manages to possess Nora and beats the shit out of Jules in Nora's body. Almost strangles him, but then he can't keep his hold on like Nora's body or whatever and is like expelled from it. So Nora then starts climbing. I don't know, there's like a ladder on the wall in the gym. Is that normal? I don't know. Jules then follows her up. He uses some mind manipulation to make her think she's falling off, but then Patch speaks inside her mind and is like, no, that's not really happening. You can do this. You just keep climbing. So Nora climbs up to the top. Jules follows her and he's like, look, I don't really care if I kill you or you fall off here. You'll still be dead and it's still gonna hurt Patch. And then Nora realizes the sacrifice. So she's like, actually, by me sacrificing myself, it'll kill you, which honestly, I think I missed that detail earlier. I didn't realize it would also kill Jules, but apparently the sacrifice will kill you, and then Patch will be human again and he'll be happy and your whole plan will be ruined. And she just jumps. The end. No, I'm joking. She wakes up, I don't know, I think she wakes up the same night in her bedroom and Patch is there and she's like, what? How did I not die? What's going on?
What the fuck?
And Patch explains Jules died because of her sacrifice, but Patch did not accept the sacrifice, therefore saved her and is now her guardian angel, and she's alive, but somehow Jules is still dead and didn't come back to life. And that's pretty much the end of the story. How do we feel about all of that?
I definitely don't think I'm well.
Honestly, I think I said a lot of what I needed to say earlier. I don't think this is a good book. I can have a nostalgic appreciation of it because I enjoyed it as a teenager, and I can still have sort of positive feelings towards it because of that, but I can also recognize that it's not a good book. I can honestly see what that creator was talking about in terms of it did feel very reminiscent of Twilight at certain points. Just the whole plot structure and the reveals and the character development, I can see that very much. I think it was as good as Twilight. I think Twilight was far better. I do think the relationship was very toxic. I think Patch is a walking red flag and Nora deserves better from both him and her friends. This basically is a story of Nora, the beigest character in the world, having the worst people around her. Her mum was fine, actually. Her mum was pretty decent, but she was barely there. So actually, is she decent if she's an absent parent? That's a whole other conversation. My thoughts, I think I would stand by what I said at the beginning, that this book is very much of its time. The diet culture of the time is so prevalent that it did make it just exhausting to read at times. I'm so glad we are not in that stage of diet culture anymore, and I do appreciate that it's still not perfect and there are definitely still problems, especially towards women's bodies and women's diets, but I am glad it's not like it was back then. What else makes it very of its time? Just everything about it. All of it is so 2009, and I think if you can read it through that lens, it's not the worst. I just think we have had such a development in like literature, YA books, and things feeling very different now to how they did back then, that in comparison this doesn't look amazing, but at the time it was one of the best things I'd ever read. I would be so interested to hear your guys' thoughts on this. If you read it at the time, like how you felt about it. If you've read it more recently, like for the first time, I'd be so interested to know your thoughts, because I feel like a lot of mine are very much through the lens of having read it when I was a teenager. I don't plan on reading further in this series. I did just want to reread this first book, but by all means, if you guys would like to see me read the other books and discuss them and you know, talk about the silly lines and people's eyes not playing by the rules, then let me know, because I would happily do that. This book was quite easy to read, it just wasn't the best. So I'll do it if you guys want me to, but otherwise that'll be all on Hush Hush in this series. I hope wherever you are, you're having a wonderful day, and I will see you guys soon. Bye.